Yes. Oh my god. I have been waiting to get to this game ever since I started the show. Sonic 2 was what introduced me to video games, but it was the adventure games that defined my early childhood. From exploring the shores of Emerald Coast to the heights of cities and mountains, all the way to that view on the Ark, I have these games to thank for many cherished memories and countless hours of fun. It's too bad they're not all pieces of trash. Alright, I'm being harsh again. That comment is really directed at this game's sequel rather than today's topic. I actually really like Sonic Adventure and think it has potential to be the best game in the series. It's just, god-awful piece of trash. This game was the Blue Blur's first real jump into the 3D world, and it had been 4 years since the last big Sonic game. A whole console generation had swept by the Hedgehog, and it feels like something was lost in that time. I don't think it works to Adventure's detriment, but this game is a whole new beast compared to what came before it. But does it hold up despite that? Well, let's find out. Hello, I'm David, and this is my look at Sonic Adventure DX. DX stands for Deluxe, by the way. It was a dark and stormy night. Station Square got wrecked. And that's it. I would go on and say there's more to it than that, but after the impact this game had left on the rest of the franchise, I'd be lying out of my ass, thus highlighting what I believe to be the biggest problem in this series. There's no continuity. There are huge developments for both characters and the world they inhabit in this game, and none of it is referred to again. Now, there are some mentions to it in Adventure 2, but despite sharing a name with its predecessor, it has nothing to do with the events of this story. Nothing. To say it's a disappointment, especially at a time when good storytelling is becoming as essential to a video game as, the games themselves, would be an understatement. But that's just what later titles do with this game's material. So, how does the story fare itself? Well... We begin with Angel Island caught in the middle of a storm as a massive airship heads towards the floating land. There, Knuckles is chilling with the Master Ammo when it suddenly shatters, revealing some water dude in a mystical light. Seeing this, Knuckles tries punching the water dude, but he's knocked away and the water dude just disappears afterward. And I think you can figure out what happens next.
Meanwhile, surfers rejoice.
For one big wave.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, in the forest below, a piece of the water dude has somehow broken off, possessing a nearby pet frog who swallows one of the Chaos Emeralds, which just so happened to be in the possession of the frog's owner, a purple abomination called Big the Cat, who chases his pet when he runs away. Later, we see Sonic in the city of Station Square, who seems to have gone a separate way from Tails. Why? I have no fucking clue. This is a little nitpick I have with this age of Sonic games, the game consistently disbanding after every story's conclusion, even though they should know by now that Robotnik's just going to cause more shit. Oh, right. Spoilers. Robotnik's the bad guy. Anyway, the Hedgehog sightseeing is interrupted when 4 police cruisers speed by. Curious, Sonic follows into the water dude from earlier, who's apparently been terrorizing Station Square. Hey, he ain't hurting nobody. He's just doing some parkour. Sonic gives him a boop in the head and the water dude retreats into the sewers, where he no doubt gathers enough sewage to become a Golgothian. Overlooking the Blue Blur is Robotnik in a new outfit, who states that the creature he just encountered was Chaos, the god of destruction. Ivo, sweetie, we've talked about this. Beerus is the god of destruction, not this water dude. And yes, I know we've already established his name as Chaos, but I've grown fond of a nickname for him, so we're gonna keep calling him that, okay? Knuckles arrives in Station Square looking for shards of the Master Apple in hopes of restoring the mythical gem. Meanwhile, Tails is flying over the city in a new biplane of his own design. Everything seems to be going great until the plane suddenly malfunctions and he crashes into the shores below. Sonic sees the little dude go down and rushes off to his aid. After bringing him back to the hotel he was staying at, or loitering, Sonic asks what caused Tails to just crash like that. The mutant explains that it's a new power supply he's working to integrate into his designs. What is this new power supply?
Whoa! A Chaos Emerald!
Yep, I just happened to find one of the 7 emeralds during one of my test fights. This thing's got unlimited power, So I figured, why not use it to power my plane? Supercharge!
Sonic escorts Tails back to his workshop outside the city limits, where they're confronted by Robotnik, insultingly referred to as Eggman. Ah, that'll do you one better. Robotnik reveals he's working with the Water Dude to find all 7 Chaos Emeralds to empower him and destroy Station Square. Also, the fat ass can build his own mechanical metropolis over the ruins. Tails suggests he and Sonic gather up the emeralds themselves before Robotnik and the Water Dude can, and they fail miserably. By the end of the day, Robotnik steals 2 of the 3 emeralds from our heroes and gasses them for their troubles.
What if it wasn't gas? What if it was just egg? What if it's just the aftermath of Eggman's 7 bean burritos?
Ew, it's purple.
Exactly. You have not had the horrors of Mystery Food X, have you?
That's gross, Matt. Mystery Food X.
Oh yeah.
After scouring the corners of Station Square, Knuckles manages to retrieve a handful of Master Emerald shards. Upon arriving at the local hotel to retire for the night, the red bastard notices Robotnik carrying what appears to be a shard of the Master Emerald. Really, it's just the Chaos Emerald he just stole off of Sonic and Tails, but in the confusion, he sticks a level 2 Water Dude on Knux and then just leaves. Sonic and Tails wake up the following morning and, realizing their losses, rush off to the Fallen Angel Island to search for more Chaos Emeralds. Meanwhile, Big has finally arrived in Station Square. I guess something was wrong with his transpads, and he chases his frog all over the damn city. Outside of town, Sonic and Tails run into Knuckles, who mistakes a Chaos Emerald in their hands for a Master Emerald shard. Again. In the scuffle, Robotnik swoops in and steals the Chaos Emeralds to give to the Water Dude, leveling up to a strange merman creature. The classic trio killed it for the 3rd time, and Robotnik summons his
Giant Johnson.
A floating masterpiece, the Egg Carrier!
Robotnik flies off, and Knuckles decides to go look for more Master Emerald shards. As Sonic and Tails prompt to chase after the fat ass, they load up in the tornado and get shot down. A moment of silence for Sonic's biplane, the tornado. We hardly knew ye. Oh look, a helmet. Sonic and Tails survive but are separated in the crash, the blue blur landing in Station Square, and the little dude waking up in the mountains. Realizing the tornado is kaput, Tails figures he needs to finalize his new plane design and figure out the kinks to his power supply, but it needs a Chaos Emerald to work, so he's off to find one of those. Sonic searches all over town for Tails, worried for the little dude, but gets—
Wait up! Long time no see!
Wait, who's this?
Amy!
Amy? Yeah, it turns out Amy got one hell of a makeover after the events of Sonic CD. She also must have gone through one hell of a growth spurt because she's suddenly a few years older too. I'd like to thank the Archie comics for explaining that, but the way they went about it makes her seem like she's self-absorbed, arrogant, ignorant, and selfish. I'm okay with that. Anyway, she's here to ask Sonic to take care of this bird Lily that fell on her head after the egg carrier flew by, which is also being chased by this hulking metal contraption, known only as Zero. Sonic, not wasting his own time, runs off to keep looking for Tails but is forced into the local amusement park by Amy's stupidity. He loses track of her while in there and searches the entire damn city for her. Meanwhile, Tails has finally managed to grab a Chaos Emerald after it was snagged by Big's frog, which he apparently chased all the way out here. Anyway, with a Chaos Emerald in hand, Tails goes to construct a new plane to compete with the egg carrier. In the dead of the morning, Tails has finally finished his new plane design, the Tornado 2, which he flies off with to reunite with Sonic and take down Robotnik. Meanwhile, Amy has finally found her way out of the amusement park. Hey, don't feel bad, Amy. I have trouble with houses and mirrors too. But alas, Amy is captured by Zero. With all the commotion, Sonic sees Amy being taken by Zero and gives chase.
Meanwhile, at the Legion of Doom,
E-102 Gamma, the latest model of the E-100 series of robots, is brought online by Robotnik and is put to various tests to prove his worth. This includes the first stages of a serial killer, and the first of his victims, his older brother, E-101 Beta. Gamma succeeds in all his ordeals, and then the egg hole just tosses Beta away like trash. And I can see why.
Wait, why are both of his hands guns? What if he has to wipe his ass? You monster!
But Beta wins over Robotnik when he gives him the puppy eye treatment. And that somehow works. Meanwhile, Knuckles has returned to the Master Emerald Shrine after an acid trip and reconstructs the mythical gem.
This should do it.
I wish reconstruction was that easy for me.
All is well.
That's how they build. That's how they build buildings back in the ancient Mayan days. Just threw materials at it. It builds itself.
The spaghetti method.
But there's still a chunk of the Master Emerald missing. All is not lost, however, as the mythical gem turns into a TV for a second and projects an image of the egg carrier, directing Knuckles to find the last few shards there. But he has no idea what the thing is. That's when Gamma suddenly shows up and passes by the red bastard. Thinking he can lead him to the egg carrier, Knuckles follows Gamma to Robotnik's version of Midgar, and they take to the skies in the man's giant Johnson. Elsewhere, Sonic is finally caught up with Zero, who immediately gets abducted by Robotnik and the blue blur gives chase. While all of this is going down, Gamma has left the egg carrier with a squad of other robots like him to find the frog Big has been chasing. Gamma grabs the fucker and promptly returns to the egg carrier, after an acid trip of course. Upon presenting his findings, the Egghole dismisses the other robots of the E100 series and orders Gamma to interrogate Amy. But he gets spun around and winds up in the wrong room, where he sees Beta stripped apart and being modified. He gets himself back on track and demands Amy to give him the bird.
Hilarious. What a fucking comedian.
But something sparks inside of Gamma, and he lets Amy go to get lost in the machinations of the egg carrier. Back with Sonic, he has just witnessed the results of attempting to chase an aircraft on foot. No doubt learning a very valuable lesson from this. Failing to save Amy, and learning that— Yeah, okay, no, Tails just turns a corner around the mountainside and picks up Sonic to chase the egg carrier. Maybe that's why he kept doing that in 06. He thought Tails would swoop on by with a tornado too, and they keep on chasing the fat ass. Even when Tails is already with him. Sonic the Hedgehog is kind of an idiot. So they cause some mayhem, Tails reveals the Tornado 2's jet mode, cause even more mayhem, set up the egg carrier to fall, and crash land when Tails remembers he forgot to install landing gear. Wait, what?! Okay, he does clarify that it's just the Tornado 2's jet mode that doesn't feature the landing gear, and given the wing's X shape, I don't see it landing without a special strip anyway. But you couldn't have switched modes real quick before you landed? For someone who was able to strap a jet booster onto the old plane with no repercussion, mind you, you're kind of an idiot. Whatever, Sonic and Tails crash land on the egg carrier, but Robotnik has a foolproof plan to stop them.
Get a load of this!
You know, I may not be an aerospace engineer, but that transformation is so stupid. We have a lot to cover today, so I'm not going to waste time ranting about how the egg carrier should have been snapped in half like a twig by that little stunt and just move on. Amy has finally found her way to the poop deck, but is confronted by Robotnik. Then Sonic and Tails show up, but are then confronted by Gamma. In all the confusion, Robotnik snags Lily and pulls out—
Whoa! A Chaos Emerald!
What? Where'd that come from? Whatever, Robotnik takes the Chaos Emerald and runs off, leaving Gamma to fight our heroes. That is until it's interrupted by Amy and her pleas for both sides to stop, especially for Gamma to realize Robotnik's wrongdoings and denounce him. But that's when the egg carrier suddenly begins falling, so Sonic orders Tails to take Amy to safety while he goes to confront Robotnik with Knuckles, who's found the last remaining shards of the Master Emerald. Oh, and Big is there too. It turns out the Water Dude not only absorbed the Chaos Emerald Lily had up her ass, but also the one Big's frog swallowed at the beginning of the game, along with the Water Dude's tail. All of that culminating into this. They kill the Water Dude again and the egg carrier crashes. A moment of silence for Robotnik's third giant Johnson. While chasing after the fat ass, Sonic winds up in the forest outside of town and is guided into this temple by the mystical light. Knuckles has returned to Angel Island with the last few shards of the Master Emerald and the 6 Chaos Emeralds the Water Dude had. With the Master Emerald finally reconstructed, Knuckles monologues to himself how he's glad this mess is finally over and how he experienced no development whatsoever. Gamma decides to hunt down the other robots of the E100 series and destroy them, spending the day tracking down E103 Delta and E104 Epsilon. Meanwhile, Amy and Tails have arrived in Station Square, and just to further prove how much of an airhead Amy is, she completely misses Robotnik falling from the sky and then summoning a fucking ballistic missile to destroy Station Square. How do you miss something like that? Also, if you had that the whole time, then why didn't you just use it to begin with? Could have saved us some time. And before you go on about, well, maybe, no! There is nothing to suggest about the missile. It just comes out of nowhere. It probably wasn't mentioned up to this point for a good reason. It's a dud.
I can't believe this!
You and me both, Ivo. Amy finally notices the pendant around Lily's neck and sees her in a photo with other birds. She decides to help Lily reunite with them while Tails is—
That's Eggman! I wonder what happened to Sonic.
Robotnik is determined to see Station Square in ruins. Why this city specifically? So he hurries along to the missile to rearm and detonate it. Tails attempts to chase after him, but hesitates when he realizes how much pressure the situation holds. He realizes with Sonic nowhere to be found, it's solely up to him to defeat Robotnik and save the city. So he kicks his ass.
Hey, I did it! You saved the day! You're the best!
Hey, look, there's Biggs.
I did it all by myself.
This is totally a Tails fanfiction.
And then I shook hands with the president. Went to China.
And then I set off on my next mystic adventure, where I had to fight Tyrannosauruses and F-15s.
Day 4.
Amy has searched all over Robotnik's version of Midgard, but fails to find Lily's friends, so she figures they must be on the egg carrier. Sonic, meanwhile, has found his way to the heart of an underground temple where he discovers a mural of some creature destroying the world. Gamma has returned to the egg carrier, which is now floating at sea, to track down E-105 Zeta and destroys the redesigned Beta before succumbing to his wounds. Gamma sacrifices himself to let the bird inside him and Beta go and reunite with Lily. Yeah, it's probably time to explain that. You see, every one of Robotnik's Bagnik robots have a little woodland critter inside them powering the machine. It's something akin to hamster power, and it's no different for the E100 series. It's why Gamma has gone hunting down all the other bots of the line, to free the animals. We'll talk more about the themes around that another time. So yeah, Gamma dies, but the birds inside him and Beta are the ones with Lily in her photo, so when Amy comes aboard the egg carrier, they reunite and everything's hunky-dory. We never see her again. What else could have happened? Back with Sonic, he's raided Robotnik's version of Midgard and kicked his ass something fierce, especially for that fucking move. So Robotnik is just kind of sulking around until he happens upon a puddle of water. Meanwhile, with Knuckles, despite reconstructing the Master Emerald and returning it to its proper place, Angel Island is still sunk in the ocean. The red bastard sees the fat ass in the distance and upon further investigation, is attacked by a puddle of water. Elsewhere, Sonic is chilling under a tree when Tails arrives to tell him about Angel Island. They go out to investigate and find Robotnik and Knuckles on the ground, who reveal that the water dude is still very much alive and has taken the 6 Chaos Emeralds in Knuckles' possession. Our heroes realize they need to find the Tornado 2 and retrieve the Chaos Emerald housed within it. Where is the transforming plane, you ask? Oh, at Big's house. Yeah, it turns out this dumbass is a certified pilot, and he used the plane to escape the egg carrier. Who knew? So they rush off to...
What?
Well, fuck. This is not gonna end well, is it? Yeah, it didn't end well. So the mystical light from earlier approaches Sonic and reveals herself to be an echidna named Dekal. Turns out she sealed the water dude and herself away in the Master Emerald long ago, after he destroyed the world once before. It got better. Dekal pleads for the water dude to be sealed inside the Master Emerald again, but Sonic figures, what good would that do?
It won't change how he feels inside, will it? His heart will still remain in turmoil, and his anger just won't vanish. He'll just be trapped forever.
Water dude needs some counseling. Apparently in this whale-like form, the water dude doesn't need the Chaos Emeralds within him to remain in this state, so it just sucks up their energies and tosses them away. Right into the hands of Sonic's friends that bring them right back to him. How is this useful, you might ask? Well, Tails, if you will.
Chaos only used the negative power of the emeralds. Sonic, you should be able to harness their real power.
As much as I hate to admit it, I think Tails is right about this.
Go, Sonic! Yeah, Sonic!
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 Negative forces aren't the only way to empower the Chaos Emeralds. Our positive feelings toward each other can make them work. Our hearts together form awesome power.
Friendship truly is magical. And with that, Sonic goes super. Nozzle Unleashed was more impressive. With another boop in the head, the water dude reverts to his base form and departs into the afterlife with the Tikal. And that's it. So, let's unpack this, shall we? Since this is an advanced game capable of telling a more compelling story than anything on the Genesis before it, it's only fair that I give some closing thoughts on the game's narrative itself. And it is! Okay. I mean, honestly, I never heard anybody say the story in this game was outright terrible, but it's sure not anything worth writing home about. I mentioned in my last review that escalation in succeeding projects is just natural, and that's what this game tried to do. Escalate things. I don't think it did that very well, however. Our main antagonist is poorly explained. There are characters who have no right being here and contribute nothing to the plot, and developments that have zero impact on future stories, meaning that our entire journey here meant absolutely nothing in the grand scheme of things. Station Square, a metropolitan city with a population that may rival New York, is completely and utterly destroyed, and it is never referenced again. I honestly don't know whether or not if I should keep bothering with the story and characters. If everything they've gone through is never going to be followed up upon, then why should I care about what happens? This gets even worse in Sonic Unleashed, when a prominent character dies at the end of that game, and a token that Sonic takes to remember his friend and ally is never seen again. What the fuck? Speaking of people, might as well talk about our stars for today. So with all the improved technology of 1998 that was used to make this game, we have a full company of actors providing voices for Sonic in-game. And the end result is...
Chaos!
I wouldn't say it's bad, but I do think there was a lack of solid direction for the talents that were casted for these roles. Starting off with our true and blue hero, Sonic is voiced by Ryan Drummond, who gets the blue blur down pat. The heroic nature of the Hedgehog and his thrill-seeking personality fits pretty well with Drummond's voice. I wish we got to see more of him as Sonic. He could have stood alongside Steve Downes as the definitive voices for iconic characters. Sadly, that's not the case. Next up is Tails, voiced by Corey Brinkus. He gets the job done. Michael McGahern provides the voice of the confused idiot that is Knuckles the Echidna. I neglected to mention this in Sonic 3, but the reason the Red Bastard was on Sonic's ass throughout that game was because he was tricked by Robotnik into thinking Sonic was there to steal the Master Emerald. He tricks him again into thinking Sonic is searching for the Master Emerald shards, with no explanation mind you, and he buys it. If there's one thing this actor got about Knuckles, it's how gullible he is. As Amy Rose is Jennifer Dooleyard, and much like Corey Brinkus as Tails, she gets the job done. Honestly, for someone like Amy, all you really need is a feminine voice and you're done. It could have been a man voicing her and I bet you it still would have worked. Next is... Steve Brody as Gamma.
E-103 Delta. E-104 Epsilon. Rescue mission accomplished. E-105 Zeta. E-101 Beta. Location unknown. Perhaps aboard the egg carrier.
As a new addition to the Sonic cast, Gamma is a welcome one in my book. As a stoic robot hell-bent on destroying Robotnik's shit, Gamma is much a heroic badass to me as the Master Chief is. With that deep and sexy robotic voice, spicy. I'm surprised that bird inside of him never reclaimed its role as Gamma. Could have commissioned Tails and make a new robotic body for it. Been a recurring character for the series. A more interesting one than Omega ever could be. Then... oh god.
Ah, there's Froggy. Looks like he needs my help.
The late Dean Bristow provides his voice as Robotnik, and I gotta say, I think he's the best we ever had. Mike Pollock would later take over for Bristow as the mad scientist, but would go down as more of a comedic take on the character. Bristow's version sounds terrifying. Case in point.
You fool. Away, before I make mincemeat out of you.
Mother!
Like in Sonic 3 and Knuckles, there are multiple characters to play as in order to get the full story. They each have their own unique abilities, but that's where the similarities end. Before, characters were able to run just as fast as Sonic, but here, characters have their own stats of abilities and are able to do things like climbing ladders faster than the others. You also have to play through all 6 characters' adventures in order to unlock the final story sequence to actually finish the game. And I'm going to tell you right now, that's going to be a running theme until Sonic Unleashed. As seen earlier, characters will run into each other in their own adventures, and even duke it out sometimes for really stupid reasons. I don't have anything to say about the fights themselves, they're pitifully easy. But I bet some of you are wondering that if characters like Sonic and Tails share scenes like the first time they encounter Robotnik together, wouldn't that get a little repetitious? Well, not really. To help avoid the repetitive nature of seeing the same thing twice, scenes shared between characters are separated by paraphrased dialogue that has the same meaning, but said differently. Most of the time. This one quote from Sonic and Amy's adventure makes him sound like he's obsessed with Robotnik.
I'll nail that Eggman! Can't let him escape!
There's just something about the delivery of that line. Anyway, yeah, this is a nice way of separating events between characters. Now for the game itself, for realsies this time. With 6 different characters to play as, there are 6 different playstyles to accompany them. But since this game was designed with a mono controller in mind, the controls are a bit different. Every character can at least move with the left analog stick and jump with the A button, along with interacting with people and objects with the X and B buttons, in addition to moving the camera with the left and right bumpers. But for each individual character starting off with Sonic, his levels are all about going from point A to point B. Much like in previous games, it's all about just getting to the end of the level and then moving on. But unfortunately, it seems with the transition into the 3D world, Sonic's level design has gotten a little narrow, to put it simply. There's not really much in the way of off-the-beaten pathways for the blue blur, just shortcuts and alternate paths that bring you right back to the game's linear design. I mean, it looks pretty, to say the least, but what's the point of a pretty-looking world if I can't really explore it? Ah well, new to Sonic's abilities is a little something called the homing attack, a mid-air dash that locks onto the nearest enemy and bounces off them to create a chain of attacks. It can be useful for crossing some large gaps or even gaining some quick momentum. Sonic's spin dash has been changed a little bit. Now in Adventure, Sonic still needs to be standing still in order to perform the ability, but all you need to do is just press and hold the X or B buttons to charge it up and blast off. Combined with Sonic's floaty jump in this game, you can really cross some distance if you know how to. New to this game is the addition of collectible power-ups, basically little knickknacks you can pick up to give a character added abilities, some mandatory, some optional. For Sonic, first off, are some new shoes that give him the Lightspeed Dash, the ability to charge up his spin dash to surround himself in this blue aura, and then blaze across a trail of rings. However, it takes about 4 seconds to charge up, but that can be cut down by the crystal ring and give the collected energy a recolor. Lastly is the Ancient Light, which gives Sonic the ability to perform the Lightspeed Attack, which is basically the Lightspeed Dash but against a single enemy, but is only really useful against Chaos 6. Tails, strangely enough, is all about competing in foot races to the finish. But you're Tails, so his levels are pitifully easy, but so fun to break. In this game, flying with Tails is as easy as tapping the A button and then pressing and holding to ascend to the skies, but holding it for too long will tire out the little dude and he'll fall into the depths below. However, you can let go of the jump button once Tails takes flight. He'll begin to descend afterwards, but you can still easily maneuver him to your liking and this won't tire him out. Pressing either the X or B buttons while in the skies will cause him to descend at a faster rate, but can be pretty useful to get back onto the ground quickly for a race. He also has his Tailspin Attack, which exists. It can also be done with the X and B buttons, but you can't be going at full speed to perform it. If you do try to perform it at those speeds, the little dude will just do a tuck and roll, as will Sonic. For his power-ups, Tails gets the Jet Anklets, which make him fly faster, and the Rhythm Badge, which allows the little dude to continuously do his tail attack by pressing and holding the X or B buttons. Man, he would be a killer at ballet. Knuckles, since his adventures are all about finding the Master Emerald Shards, his levels are all about finding the Master Emerald Shards, which consist of big open areas for him to explore around and to sabotage.
Use the joystick to control the ship.
Whatever you say, crazy imaginary fairy lady! Whoa, this is a problem.
With his connection to the Master Emerald, Knuckles has a built-in radar that allows him to find any one of the 3 shards within a level. It's basically a game of hot and cold. The closer you are to finding a Master Emerald shard, the faster the radar will bleep. Knuckles' gliding abilities are on par with his Sonic 3 skill set, only he doesn't drop like a rock when you stop gliding in mid-air, and you can continue to do so by pressing and holding the A button again. He also doesn't slide along the ground anymore, so that's handy. New to the Red Bastard is a 1-2-3 punching combo performed by pressing the X or B buttons. The first couple swings are some basic punches from the dude, but the third punch propels Knuckles forward with some added fire effects. Knuckles' upgrades consist of the shovel claws, which allow him to burrow underground, and the fighting gloves.
What the hell? Why'd you just give me some gloves with I am gay written on them?
You got the I am gay gloves.
With these gloves, the Red Bastard is capable of performing the maximum heat Knuckles attack. Amy's levels are similar to Sonic's in that it's a journey from point A to point B. The rest consists of the Robot Zero chasing you all across the land. Amy herself runs nowhere near as fast as the Blue Blur and relies on her new Pico Pico hammer to deal with the opposition. At almost a standstill, pressing the X or B buttons will cause Amy to swing her hammer downward. At her full running speed, indicated by her hammer appearing in her hand, pressing the X or B buttons will make her hit the ground so hard that she propels herself upwards. Man, she would be a killer at gymnastics. Amy gets the Warrior Feather and the Long Hammer, which benefit to the Pink Hedgehog's new Spin Hammer attack. Next up is... Gamma.
Dr. Robotnik. Enemy. Master registration deleted. E-Series. Friends. Must save.
For a majority of Gamma's adventure, he is off hunting down the E100 series of robots and freeing the animals locked inside. But with a gun for a hand, peace dogs are not really something the bot excels at, so he's all about shooting and blowing shit up. A strange little gimmick to Gamma's levels is that he's on a countdown timer, which can be extended by chaining together locked-on targets and blowing them to Kingdom Come. To lock on and fire at targets, press and hold the X or B buttons to activate Gamma's laser sight and lock onto an enemy, then release one of the 2 buttons to fire upon them. Locking onto an enemy is as simple as facing them in the direction they're in and then working Gamma's destructive magic. It's simple and effective, but maybe a little too much for his boss fights, which can all be won easily in a matter of a few seconds by just pressing the shoot button over and over again. It's laughable, and it's so disappointing. Gamma's power-ups consist of the Jet Booster and the Laser Blaster. While the Laser Blaster is mostly for show, the Jet Booster is a nifty little item that's useful for platforming. It essentially slows your descent after jumping, which can be useful for positioning yourself after jumping from a great height, or stroll on in like a badass. To activate it, tap the A button and then press and hold it, or you could just press and hold it and then it will activate after Gamma reaches the apex in his jump. It can be activated and deactivated as many times as you want, so long as you remain in the air, kind of like Knuckles' gliding ability. Then there's Big. Oh my god. I once again defer you all to my Lord and Savior.
Like I mentioned earlier, Big's story involves him searching for his pal, Froggy. Big is a fisherman, it's all he knows. To retrieve Froggy, Big needs to cast his lure and hope to God the frog takes the bait. Once you get a hit, it's just a matter of luring the frog in and booyah, the level's done. Okay, now for the bullshit.
I don't exactly mind Big's style of gameplay, but there's just one critical flaw with it. What the fuck is it doing here? Fishing? Fishing? In a Sonic game? No, if this game ever gets remade, I pray to God that the developers remove Big. Not only as a playable character, but from the story completely. He adds nothing to this game, not as an intriguing character, or as entertaining gameplay. Nothing of value would be lost. Last up in the character roster is Supersonic. Since the Chaos Emeralds now exist within this game's world, there are no special stages to collect the emeralds anymore. However, Supersonic has now been exclusively reserved as a final boss mechanic from this point onward, so that means no more going super in the main game anymore, at least in Gold Colors anyway. But for how he actually controls, well, the base mechanics I mentioned at the start of this section, left analog stick to move, A to jump, still apply here. Supersonic's objective is to gain enough speed and momentum to carry himself up the water dude's being and boop him in the head. You can do that by using these speed panels or by using the homing attack as an air dash. The water dude's attacks will cause you to lose your momentum if they come into contact with you, but if you still have enough distance, you can still build up enough speed to boop him in the head. Do that 6 times and you got him beat. I just wish the same song played through the whole fight. And with that, I think it's time we talk about this game's greatest grace. The music. It is phenomenal! Oh, I said in my last review that Sonic 3's soundtrack was jamming, but this... Oh, these songs are what make this game a true adventure. From the inspiring optimism from Azure Blue World and Emerald Coast, to the silliness of life from Dilapidated Way and Casinopolis, the adrenaline-filling jazz of Be Cool, Be Wild, and Be Groovy from the Returning Ice Cap, the rising beauty of the sunrise on the city from At Dawn and Speed Highway, the hellish screams and rising tension from Red Hot Skull and Red Mountain, that kick-ass guitar riff from Skydeck Go-Go, the laid-back mystery of Leading Lights from Lost World, to the mechanical resonance of Final Egg, and the perfect fucking theme for any modern city in the world. Like in Sonic 3, all 6 characters will go through the same levels shared between them all. Unlike that game, however, the 6 do not share all 11 levels, or action stages as they are called here. No, in fact, even though Sonic is the star of this show, he only goes through 10 of the 11 stages. Tails gets 5, as does Knuckles and Gamma, Amy 3, and for some reason Big has 4. I'm gonna list these off in the order Sonic visits them, and I'll shove in the last wherever I think it's best. Starting off with Emerald Coast, we have a lovely little resort that, like any good first level, eases the players in and helps them prepare for the mechanics of the game. Oh yeah, and Wales. Next up is Windy Valley, where
help! We're being sucked in!
If you like pinball and gambling, or going commando in the sewers, the Casinopolis is the place for you. Now destroy that golden Sonic statue, Knuckles. I never knew that simply climbing a mountain would eventually cause an avalanche. Again, maybe because of this fall. Twinkle Park feels like the most fish out of water stage in this game. There's just something about the way it's designed that makes it feel like I'm not playing a Sonic game anymore. Speed Highway can be a lot of fun if you really know how to use the characters you're playing as, especially jumping across rooftops with Sonic. Red Mountain is the most fun to explore with Knuckles. It's just so open-ended and fun to explore with his gliding and wall-crawling abilities. Skydeck is unnecessary, moving on. Hot Shelter is a strange little level. It's exclusive to the newcomers Amy, Big, and Gamma, so it's interesting to see a level designed without Sonic in mind. But I don't know, it kinda gives me vibes of all those action-adventure games from the PS2's library. Lost World just sucks. This game's levels have all had some problems with linear design, but this is just the worst. It is incredibly straightforward, and any alternate pathway is either more dangerous or a mere shortcut. Yeah, the previous games were kinda like this too, but I was willing to let that slide because those were early 90s games. This is a game from 1998, and we already had things like Metal Gear Solid and Daggerfall. Games that allowed you to approach a situation in different ways with so many tools and abilities at your disposal. They are tied to that here, but it feels so restrictive and sometimes clunky. Final Egg is a surprisingly easy final level. Then again, it is Gamma's first in his adventure, so meh. But with special stages gone now, along with bonus stages, what's taking its place are the new sub-games. Something you will encounter in each character's story, like Sky Chase, Sand Hill, and Hedgehog Hammer. The only optional one is Twinkle Circuit, which only exists as another means of collecting emblems. Oh shit, I forgot about the emblems! As a reward for completing stages and sub-games, you receive an emblem. With every one of them collected, you can play as Sonic with a Metal Sonic skin. Okay. I've never done it myself. Yet. I'll work on getting them now, just for completionist's sake. A majority of emblems are collected by playing stages multiple times and are different stipulations, like getting a higher score, beating a level with a certain amount of rings, finishing under a time limit, or exploring the adventure fields for them. Alright, bear with me, I'm going to try and explain Hub Worlds. New to this game are a little something called Hub Worlds, areas where players can explore a game's world, interact with non-playable characters, or NPCs, and access levels of the game. For me, these are a welcome addition, as it can be fun to look around and explore to see what you can find. I just wish there was more to do. Now, at the very least, each area in one of the 3 adventure fields are not overly large, and you can travel in them as you would in any other level in the game. I just wish there was more to do. You can talk to the people walking about Station Square and the explorers of the Mystic Ruins, but I never found anything they said to be too interesting. That doesn't sway me away from this game, though. For as much as it may have underperformed, its strengths outweigh its own faults enough for me to keep coming back to it. One of the best things about this game, besides the music, is the control. One of the most important aspects of any video game is feeling that you have complete control over what you're doing, within the rules of the game, of course. Playing as the characters in this game feels so satisfying, not only just because I have complete control over them, but they feel like they have actual weight to them more than ever now. When you move these characters, you feel like these characters. They're incredibly responsive to button inputs and react appropriately to terrain, most of the time. It doesn't punish you for not being pixel perfect, it lets the player be a little loose, and combined with some still pretty fun levels to explore, Sonic Adventure takes advantage of each individual character's abilities to bring a game close to what I believe to be the definitive Sonic game. With great music to accompany it, and an okay story at the least, this is a game I recommend people to give a try. Join me again in September when we enter the dark age of the Sonic franchise with Sonic Adventure 2. Oh god, I have to look at Adventure 2. Until then, I'm David, and I'll catch you on the flip side. Oh god, that's going to be a train wreck.